Network.
So, good afternoon first to our amazing hosts, Michael and Elizabeth, here every Wednesday asking all the important questions. Tonight on Humpday Exchange, though, we are joined by Representative Michelle McCane, a Democrat for House District 72, which includes North Tulsa, Turley, Sperry, and parts of Owasso, which I'm pretty sure you're mine. She's a lifelong Tulsan, a longtime Tulsa Public Schools educator, a former Teacher of the Year, and she made history as the first woman and openly LGBTQ plus person to represent House District 72. She brings real classroom experience and deep community roots to the Capitol. We are so excited to have you on here. Would you like to kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think you covered the highlights. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle McCane. As you heard, I was a TPS teacher for a little over a decade, but I worked for the district as a support employee as well for 4 years before that. I have two kiddos, a baby grown up, she's 22, and then my son will be 15 tomorrow. And so I think one of the main things people ask is like, how did I get here? Why did I run? And I would say I got upset and also felt like, if you're going to call me a terrorist and a groomer and an indoctrinator, you should have to do it to my face. And what easier way to do that than to be at the Capitol?
Listen.
Love that. Love that. Who's kicking this off this evening? Michael?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Having some technical difficulties, so so I first wanted to ask you, what do you think of the new education superintendent, the one that replaced Ryan Walters?
I think that it's easy to look really good compared to Ryan Walters. And so I think that that's the one thing I want people to remember is we still should be observant and critical, even though we should all be relieved. And honestly, I think that my concern with the new superintendent is I worry that he is just going to calm things down for now, and then we'll get right back to the privatization of education. I will say that so far, I like the work that he is doing. But I think a little bit of, skepticism is warranted. So I'm very much watching and paying attention. Looks good so far, but I want to see that continue.
No, I'm definitely on the same boat there. Like you said, it's easy to look good compared to Ryan Walters. So.
Right. The bar is not high.
Yeah.
At all. Anyway, shape, or form.
So is that kind of what led you into getting into politics was seeing the treatment, how Ryan Walters kind of started? Is that kind of what started your journey?
A lot of it was that, but I decided that I was going to run before he was elected. I had gotten to a point where I just was kind of tired of a lot of what I was seeing, not just in education, but overall. I didn't feel like I felt anybody who lived my similar lived experience was representing me anywhere. And then I also felt like we were talking about things that weren't the everyday issues that the student families that they dealt with were dealing with. And so I had initially reached out to Monroe Nichols, who is my predecessor, and I said, hey, I just want to be more involved in the community. I was looking for organizations I could join, that sort of thing. And he, mentioned that he was going to run for mayor, and so the seat would be open. And at first I laughed at him and told him no. It wasn't the first time someone had suggested it, and I always felt like, I'm not the person. I, didn't have a poli-sci degree. This was never in my plan. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And so more so just than being upset about education, I felt like I had something to say and skills to contribute to being a representative for the people of my district. So.
Yeah. No, and leading into that, so say if I wanted to start running, is there a place you would tell me where I should get started? Not that I'm specifically running, but for anybody out there that is.
I would say if you want to run, that's great. But you need to talk to people that have done it before and that have lost, and people that have won. And then I would also suggest talking to your friends and family and make sure that you're really going to have that support, because it's hard. And I mean that mentally and emotionally. Physically, it's not a laborious thing, other than knocking doors. But you got to be sure that you want to do it, that you're bringing something valuable to it, and not just an idea of like, oh, I want, because hope is great, but hope doesn't govern. And once you get the job, that's what it is governance. And so making sure you have a support system would be good. And I would also say, whatever party you're registered to, reach out to them and ask them what their resources are and what they offer. A lot of times they'll have things that you didn't realize, and campaigning is time consuming and expensive. And so any help that you can get is great.
Yeah, for sure. I'll kick it over to Elizabeth. Let's see if
Yay! So totally fangirling over here. We were just talking about how, how this whole year has just, at first it was like, oh my God, is it ever going to end? And now we're like, oh, where did the time go? But, getting to meet you on opening day last year. And so, but, like Lisa said, just watching like all the growth and how everything works and operates, and like where you're at, like you came in like with a force and, kick some butt, kick some names, and like really, getting out there, right?
Thank you.
I'm just saying. So part of our cool little group is we have a lot of diversity with our different areas of expertise. So when I think of our education system and our children and our teachers and the administrators, I also go with like a mental health / wellness component with that as well, because now with everything that's going on, we've just jacked up our ACE scores. So now we've got not only already, as somebody that was able to go into the schools as a mental health professional to deal with the kids, or as an after-hour thing. So where do you fall? Like, where are your beliefs, ideals? Like, where do you fall in with having the mental health and the wellness and the self-care, not only for our staff, but even with our students?
So I'll say that's like a two-part thing. In an ideal world, I don't think that there should be much lifting on the part of the school for mental health in an ideal world, where kids are able to get that at home and all of that. Not that school shouldn't do it at all, but that's not what school is. And so if everybody was cared for and well otherwise, it'd be great if we could remove some of that from the school burden. But while we know that we have kids with a lot of trauma and different needs, and we know that they don't always have access to it at home for a variety of reasons, a lot of times it's just financial, I think that it is great to incorporate that into the schools. And I'll also say that if you want to incorporate social services into schools, that's fine, but then let's fund them adequately so that the schools can do it. I love the community school model, where the school is open all week long. There are social services within the building. There are different resources. I love that idea, but you've got to put funding and resources behind that. And so I don't want to say schools have got to take care of mental health, but we're not going to give you any resources to do it. And so where we are now, I'd love to see more funding and more resources for our counselors to do actual counseling, academic counseling, and then having our mental health professionals be able to really work on mental health.
Right. Because I know a lot of that funding gets cut, or contracts aren't renewed, and all of the things. I just know I feel like it's just really important, right? Like that self-care, and people hear wellness and they're like, oh, I got to eat better. I got to eat healthier. And I'm like, there's so many different components of it. But like you said, I mean, in a perfect world and a healthy family, but we're not there, right? So it's like, where do we draw those lines with all of that going in? Michael, do you have something?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything?
No.
Okay.
So my industry is property management, and I saw that you are big on to tenant rights. So I wanted to, and I'm also big into tenant rights as well, protecting, even though it kind of works against me, but but I do what I can to protect. So could you kind of go over what you're planning on doing, what you have done for tenant rights in the state of Oklahoma?
So, this past session, I ran a bill that would have required landlords and property owners to run background checks on their employees and then to keep track of who has access to their keys and stuff like that. We didn't get it heard in committee, and so it's not dead, but it is just kind of sitting and waiting. So I'll see if I can get some more traction behind it. My thing with tenant rights and property owners and that sort of thing is I'm always going to side with people, and that doesn't mean that if you're a property owner that I'm not going to side with you. It means that I'm looking at what's the people issue in it. So if you're telling me, okay, I have this situation with a tenant and a landlord, for example, and the landlord is giving all the humane, kind, compassionate options. They're a good landlord, and they have a terrible tenant. Then I'm on the side of the landlord who's being humane and being mistreated. And the same is when it's in the reverse. It's whoever is on the side of being humane to everybody. And I think one of the things that sometimes people forget when we try to support our property owners is, especially if you're a landlord for like a residential area, you have an extra home. And I'm okay with you choosing to rent it out, but just have some acknowledgement that you have an extra home. And so you are living off of somebody's residence, and it is money to you, but it's the life to them. And so you have to find like a delicate balance. And what I see, unfortunately, in my area is out of state owners that aren't doing what they need to do with their properties more so than local folks.
California.
There are certainly, bad local landlords, but that's not what I hear the biggest complaint about. It is about out-of-state developers that buy up properties, quickly flip them, rent them out, and they're gone, and they have somebody here who manages them but may or may not actually manage them. And so that's kind of where my issue is. So it's always, how are we actually taking care of people? And sometimes that's taking care of the property owner, sometimes that's taking care of the tenant. But I think that the thing is, all of our legislation is written for bad actors. We didn't write any legislation because we said, oh, people are so good and they always do the right thing, so we're going to have to put it in writing. That's not what we do. We go, oh my God, we didn't realize people were going to be that bad. We can't do that. We've got to make that against the law. We shouldn't do that. It's the reason we have child labor laws now, because people didn't originally start off being considerate. We had to legislate it. And so it's that sort of thing where it's like, I don't ever want to harm those that are doing right by their tenants and by the community ever. But I also want to make sure that we're not enabling bad actors to take advantage of regular everyday people that are just trying to get by.
Yeah, I have a couple more that kind of lead into that. So as far as, is there anything in the works as far as setting rent standards? Because like you said, they're coming in, like, I'm just going to throw out California. They're coming in from California. I've seen it, and they're buying up these houses, and they're outpricing the market. Because I personally was looking and couldn't afford. I was like, I can't afford $1,900 in rent. Is there anything that we could do or combat that?
I don't have anything on my agenda for this year right now in that regard. I'm happy to work with some folks on it. That's the thing about legislation is there are 1,000,001 options that you can choose from. I know that there are some members in the Democrat caucus that are working on some eviction legislation to try to kind of ease that burden on folks, and I'll obviously be supportive of that as long as the bills are good. But I don't have anything at this moment. I am certainly happy to work with people and look into it. One thing that I am wanting to get some more information about how we might go about addressing it is our out-of-state developers, but then also our short-term rentals. Those are the two areas that I'm trying to learn a little bit more about and understand what statutes we've got, what our options are before I try to tackle that. But it's definitely something that I'm thinking about for sure.
Sweet, thank you. And then just one last thing. As far as, it's kind of more of a personal thing, but so I have pit bulls, and in the state of Oklahoma, you can't. It's hard to rent a place with pit bulls. My sweetest dogs. Is there anything that you're possibly looking at, or any future legislation that would allow that?
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good thing to mention. I do know that there's a lot of bias towards, what considered the bully breeds or whatever. I'd be happy to look at what the legislation is or the statute is right now that prevents it and see if there's anything. I know, again, that always comes down to it got put in place by bad actors. So then trying to remove it, you have to counter that. So I'll have to look and see kind of what was the intent and attitude around the time it was enacted. What does it say? And then kind of where the attitudes are now. One thing I will say is anytime people can reach out and let us know that there is support for ideas, that's helpful. Especially for me, I don't want to be the legislator that comes in and just is always like, oh, I have the prescription to fix things, because I don't know. I don't know everything. And so if there's topics like that people have seen anything in another state, or if they've worked on something previously, would love to talk about it. But I'd definitely like to look into that. I know animals are one of those topics that come up, whether it's, stray animals or the fees and things for different penalties. There's always something. And so I'd have to look and see what that statute says, but I'm open to looking at it, especially if it's a problem for folks to get housing. I mean, that's the priority to me.
Sweet. And I think that's what makes you great, because I think you're willing and open to listen to us. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Anybody else have anything they want to throw in?
So, yeah. So when you brought up like the pet requirements, it's like I literally am working with somebody that is I cannot get like housed or rental or even like sober living because he has a pit bull, and he's like, nobody will rent to me, nobody will do these things. I'm like, are you asking or like are you telling, right? Like what's going on? So trying to kind of like curb some of those biases, but something you said about like the out-of-state owners, like, is there something that we can do as your constituents, right? Like as constituents, is there something that we can do to help bring forth, ideas, legislation, special sessions, whatever that looks like, to cap this? Because none of us are able to afford anything right now.
I hate this answer, because it's the answer we give all the time, is like, reach out to us. And I hate it because it sounds like the most brush off answer ever, but the reality of it is that it is helpful. What I don't know if people realize is that a lot of times when people get very passionate about something and they ask people to reach out, doesn't mean that they are reaching out. So I've come across different things through like my own social media that people are talking about, fired up about it. I never get a single email from anybody. And obviously, I consider those social media comments, but I don't know if those people are all in Oklahoma or not. So I do take in the information, but I don't know if they're Oklahomans. I don't know what district they're in. So, I have to be mindful of that. And so I'm always like trying to go back and see, like, did anybody email me about these things that I keep seeing people talk about? And so, but applying pressure, and in a bigger scale, if you can get numbers of people to reach out to us, then it puts pressure on us. Like it or not, one of the biggest motivators in this is that people want to be reelected. And that shouldn't be the case, but I've heard several times, well, we've got to be reelected, and we've got to be reelected. So knowing that people are watching and paying attention, or that they're looking for specific outcomes, is helpful. If there are nonprofit organizations or state agencies that deal with that similar issue that you can connect us with and say, hey, I work at this state agency and this is a problem for us housing folks, or, this rescue group is having difficulty or something like that, that's helpful. Because a lot of times they'll have the data and things like that we can use to craft legislation or to just support our viewpoints and things, instead of us having to try to come up with the information from scratch. If they've already done work, we can just kind of amplify that. If you're doing work with an organization, invite the legislators out for like an open house or some type of presentation. The big businesses and the big organizations and colleges and stuff do that all the time because they have paid lobbyists that know how this works. But everyday people can also invite us to that. I mean, I've been invited to people's Easter dinner, and like I went to a fashion show that a constituent invited me to. I don't know that everybody's going to go to that sort of thing, but if you invite us to something, we'll show up. And for a lot of us, we don't know the topics that you're talking about until you introduce them to us. Even if they're really popular on the news or on social media, you just never know what we're seeing. So unfortunately, reaching out to us is a big one.
Is there something that you're seeing? Sorry, not to vote, just to go over the whole thing here. Is there something that you're seeing that maybe we're not bringing up? Is there something that's kind of going on that maybe is kind of under the radar that we're not just kind of focused on?
I don't know that there's anything right at this moment that I have seen talked about. Well, actually, I guess if you want to talk about the pause in SNAP benefits, I did not receive a single phone call or email from a constituent about that. And obviously that's not held at the state level.
Right.
But I didn't get any emails or anything from people asking us to go into special session and saying that they support that. So while I did ask the speaker and the Senate pro tem and the governor with the Black Caucus and with the Democratic Caucus to put us in the special session, I didn't have any actual constituent feedback to add into that and say, hey, I've had 20 people or 30 people from my district reach out. I can tell you back during the social studies standards, I didn't start getting emails about that until after Pew filed his resolution, but there was a resolution that had been filed a month before that, and we might have had a little more time to get something done if people had been sending those hundreds of emails that month before and continuing. So that's kind of something that happens. Is part of it too is that you kind of wait for a Republican to do it. So I understand people waited till Pew filed the resolution because it would be likely to get traction. But that put a delay in us getting that pressure to folks. For me, obviously, I was like, yep, I got it. I agree with you. Fine. But for my colleagues, that they needed those emails to be coming for that month so that they would feel motivated to do something.
Nice. That makes like total sense.
I have a question about that. Sorry, Elizabeth. I think there is a misconception that people don't do that. They don't call. I think a lot of people think, or is it just you? Do you just really pay attention to your calls and emails? Would you say that that's like the norm amongst?
I won't say it's the norm. It varies, but I will say that there isn't always a match in what people think we're getting a lot of stuff about and what we actually are. There are mismatches sometimes, but I won't say it's all across the board. The reason I pointed out with myself specifically is because a lot of times the things I'm talking about are things that I already support. And I want people to remember that even though I support it, it's really helpful if I actually know for sure that my district also supports that, because I am not supposed to be deciding for myself and just voting. I'm supposed to be representing. So I won't say it's across the board that like nobody is reaching out. And I have heard from several folks that their person isn't responsive. So I do know that there are people that are reaching out, but I'm just saying like across the board, it may not be as saturated as we sometimes think whenever those hot button issues come up. And then it's also helpful, even for those of us that agree with your stance, to just have messages of support, especially if it's something that like we're going against the majority or whatever. It's nice to know that you're not just out there putting your neck out for no reason, that this is what people want you to stand up for.
That's really good to know, because I think there's a lot of, again, misconception about that doesn't do anything. But if enough people call, it does enough, right?
It does. Well, it does. And before I even got here, I asked actually Rep May several years ago. We were at an event and I said, so how many people have to reach out to you for you to know that something is a big deal? And he said 5. And he's so accurate. And he's in the majority caucus, very well elected and well respected from what I have seen. So, I think that it is a thing where people feel like, especially if they support us, they're like, okay, I elected you, you're good, I support you, do your thing, which is great to a degree. But it's also like, I tell my constituents all the time, don't send me up there unsupervised.
Don't just let me go to the Capitol and just do things. Like, watch me. I'm supposed to be, being supervised. I'm supposed to be getting feedback and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I love
Do
that
you
for
do you
developing.
find that people don't maybe know to do that?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that's true too. People don't know how or that they're supposed to. Um,
right. And
yeah.
so we wrote the Trans Day Visibility when it was the insurrection. Stop, Biddy. Okay. Um, Biddy. Oh, bro. Um, but it was like Maury was like, this is our house. And it was like something in that moment, even though I knew this, but there was something so powerful in that moment of absolutely, this is our house. This
Yeah.
this is ours. Like you, not I hate that you work for us, but it's like this is
But
our
we
house. Like we have
quite
every.
literally do though. We
I
literally
know, right? I'm like,
we are hired by the people.
right, exactly, and that's like so. But the fact that um, I I didn't know at one point in time that you can ask for a special session and how to go about that.
Yeah.
I do know that I read something, and I feel like I may have missed it, about like contacting and have the Dems were putting something on at the Capitol to like walk us through, right? Like this is how things go, right? Like we talk about wanting to know what our policies, procedures, what that legislative process is like. Is that something? Am I imagining that I saw that, or is that something that you guys? Am I
No,
on?
they have done that. So they've done these capital conversations, and there's one more. I can look on my calendar and tell you when it is. There's one more coming up, maybe next week, possibly. I'm very dependent on my calendar day to day, so I apologize, but I can look at it before we get off of here and let you know. And that one will be about legislative priorities that are coming up.
Okay.
So
That's the 18th, isn't it? I
let me
think is what
double
I've got
check
on my calendar.
early.
I'm excited for that win.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be great.
Yes.
The voice behind the curtain.
Double checking. I don't want to give you the wrong day. Capital conversation. Yeah, the 18th.
And then what floor is it on? Is it on the fifth floor?
It is, yes, because it's in room 535, which is that big Senate room.
We do have a couple questions in the chat, if you don't mind me throwing it out there,
Oh, yes.
Elizabeth. Okay, so we have one. What are your thoughts about the state superintendent wanting to add 15 days to the school year?
I'd love to see his data on why that would be something that we would do. Here's the thing. I'm not opposed to things just off the general idea. I'm a data person. I like, does it work? Is it meaningful? You want to add 15 days? That's great. Can we pay for lunches first? Can we take care of kids' mental health? Can we make sure that our families are not dealing like 15 days would give additional instruction time. I do wonder if they consider that if you add 15 days after state testing, that's kind of a weird time period to add it. So if you're going to add 15 days, I would highly, highly, highly encourage the testing window to be shifted to be later on in the year, because it will kind of change how the school year goes. And if you're going to add 15 days, then you need to add 15 days worth of pay to the contract at minimum. And we need to make sure that if we're adding another 15 days, that also is another 3 weeks that our support staff is going to have to work, which means that those support staff that typically get a summer job, that's going to be a difference. So we need to make sure that we're adequately increasing their pay to account for that extra time. And maybe we should consider a higher benefit allowance for them. Those are things that I would like to see before we just arbitrarily add on 15 days. But if we have data that backs up that 15 days would improve outcomes for students, and we're going to pay teachers adequately and we're going to pay support adequately, then we can talk about it.
Nice.
Political Stock commented the vote to open the government back up. As a Democrat, do you have thoughts?
I am upset. I'm pissed off, to be honest. I'm disappointed. I will say that they'll have to answer to their districts for sure, first and foremost. I don't know what their districts were saying, and so since I haven't had any personal conversations, I'll be kind and give grace that maybe their districts told them to vote that way. If their districts did not tell them to vote that way, I have a problem, because we just put people through all of this hardship, and sat around watching people who are not losing their salary, who are getting paid regularly, basically debating on everybody's worth as a human being. And then we're going back and we still have 100,000 Oklahomans that might lose insurance. We still haven't given a full month's payment for November SNAP. So what was all of that for starters? And then how are we ever going to trust you going forward from here?
Right.
Speaking of Medicare, is there anything that we can be doing? Like, I know obviously contacting our representatives and stuff like that. Is there anything else that we could be doing on top of that?
Honestly,
I know
not
it's hard.
really. I would say contact us at the state level as well as the federal level, because whatever gaps are caused at the federal level, the state's going to have to try to figure out a way to make up. I mean, there's no way that we can just sit and allow this to happen. It would decimate our state. It's not even just about the individuals. It would have a huge impact on our economy, on our future as a state. So.
Yeah, and going into that, food insecurity. I mean, I've already seen that's a kind of a big passion of mine, is food insecurity. I've seen the way this shutdown has affected. So, any thoughts on that? On because I know they only funded partial. Do you see them doing back payments for the rest of it, or is that just completely gone for the rest of these families?
I think unfortunately right now the answer to so many things is like, I don't know what they're capable of or what they're going to do. I would hope and I believe that there will be a back payment, but I can't be really confident in a lot right now. I was on SNAP at one point in my life, and even with SNAP, there were days that I went to bed hungry so that my kids had enough to eat. And so it's something that's been on my mind for sure. I think that the fact that we didn't fund it as a state just for at least the month of November is a shame. And really, we should all be embarrassed that we didn't take care of our people. And I say we because even though I asked for a special session, it didn't happen. And we all have on the same jersey, essentially. And so it's a we problem. We failed the people of Oklahoma, period, point blank. We failed them. The federal government failed them. We sat there and watched that, and we still didn't do anything about it.
I thank you for your honesty for saying that. Truly, I do.
We've been giving away pumpkins like crazy.
Yeah,
We
we've
had
been
a
collecting
farmer in
food.
Piedmont that donated over 2,000 pumpkins, and we've had pantries come and pick them up, like unbelievable. Mutual aid groups, individuals. We have 900 more being delivered tomorrow. We got a canning team started and all kinds of stuff because we're gonna start food stewarding. I think we really learned that through this SNAP stuff that there is no government that we can rely on right now, and that's sad to say because if no people lived here, there would be no government whatsoever because it's the people that make up all these systems. And so it gets really frustrating when we're discounted and tossed to the side for whatever reason. And yet, Oklahomans have been, yard pantries popping up everywhere. Snack Mom's been incredible in filling hers and more. She's coming here Saturday for our little giveaway. We're doing a free store and a pantry Saturday. Everyone in Oklahoma has been stepping up in such a huge way because we've lost faith in both governments. And where or how do we go forward from there?
That it's a tough question. I think things like this are helpful. I think that, staying in contact with your more local government as well. The federal government gets a lot of the news headlines, as well as the state level government, but your city council folks, your county commissioners, your school board people, they can make decisions that can benefit folks. I've, suggested to people that if you have the ability, donate directly to the food banks and those organizations that are doing that work. And if you can't donate, if you can volunteer, those sorts of things. I think that one thing through this, I don't think that people should stop leaning on each other. I think that we should continue to build up community. I think that with, the expansion of kind of our worlds with cars and the internet and everything got so big, the village just blew up and we really kind of forgot what it meant to have a village. So I think we still keep doing that where we're building that connection and community, and then also holding our elected officials accountable. I think, not just whenever they're out stomping for votes, it's also all throughout the year. I think there are a lot of people that really don't know what we do May or February to May. They don't see the votes that we take individually, but you can go and look those things up. You can see the recording. Some of the things that I've heard people say on the floor and like nobody responds to it is kind of wild to me. And I think more people should hear it. I've said it's really overwhelming. Don't get too overwhelmed. But if you have 4 friends in a group chat, that's school board, city council, state, and federal. Throw one thing in the group chat every week to kind of update everybody. And now you're having a little bit more well-rounded oversight of things. Ask us questions about why we voted on something. Don't just let us vote on it and say, hey, whatever. If you invite us somewhere and we say we're going to come and we don't show up, tell people that. Let them know that we didn't, keep our word, and give us enough opportunity to show ourselves to people, and hold us accountable to things. Don't pick the people that just do good speeches either. I get a lot, like I've had plenty of compliments about, oh, well, you did great at this speech or that. And I'm like, well, did I do a really good speech that like is meaningful and like my actions are going to back it up, or did I just run good game? Like, make sure that what we are saying matches up with what we're doing. Be critical. I love that I have people that like me and support me, but I also hope that those same people would gladly call me out if I wasn't, doing what I need to do for folks. And so it's having community all together, continuing to build that, and it's also holding us elected officials accountable. And also remember too that if the way that the person is when you elect them is likely how they're going to continue. It's kind of like relationships. Don't elect projects. Make sure that they're, decent and going to do the right thing before you put them in office. Don't give people a chance that haven't earned it from you.
Hey, so I want to say Political Woodstock had put something in here about like what legislation did Michelle get passed. However, you were not given an opportunity to even present any legislation because you were a late incomer, right? And
No, I came in at the beginning. So the freshmen all came in November. That's when our terms start.
Okay.
I didn't get anything. I got one bill heard in committee, and it did not get voted down, but it also did not get voted through. So I did not author my own legislation for myself this year, but I did sign on to co-author things. I supported Rep. Moore in his legislation for 1727. That was similar to the one that I filed to add teachers' dependents to Oklahoma Promise. Mine only required 5 years of service and included support staff. And once I saw that wasn't going to get through, I just went ahead and signed on to Rep. Moore's bill and supported that through. So I'm listed as a co-author there. We passed a bill that requires sexual assault victims to be notified whenever there's updates on the evidence and stuff in their cases, that sort of thing. So I'm not listed as a primary author on any of my legislation, but one of the things that I'm working on for 2026 is something that I put through this past session that also did not get voted down. It just didn't get heard. And that's protections for minors that are in monetized online content. So if you're a kid that's being put up in TikTok videos or Facebook videos and it's generating an income, if you're in a certain amount of content and your family's making a certain amount of money a year, then it would apply, and a certain amount of your money would have to be set aside, and it would give you some rights to have things taken down, which doesn't fully solve the problem. I'm aware once it's on the internet, it's there, but it's one of the options that we have to try to give them some control of content that they're in.
Nice. So, I love that, because it's like, ooh, so now that you actually have that opportunity to start doing that, so there's stuff that you're working on now, is that correct? And you have to have it in by like what time?
So the way that filing with our bills work is there's a couple of different deadlines. So the first deadline is in December, the first week of December. We have to file our subjects.
Okay.
So our subjects are just like the topics. So I can say I'm going to file a bill on housing, on education, et cetera. It's just the main things that we're going to talk about. And then there'll be another deadline where we have to put in all the language that we want to have written, and have it like finally filed and ready to go. You can amend it after that, but you need to have it initially put in to be considered. And so the bills that I had from last year are still there. They're not dead. They're in committee. And so I just have to get them heard in committee to move on. And then I can also file a new set of bills for this year. We're limited to hearing 8 bills on the floor, though, in the House. The Senate is not limited, but in the House, you can only get 8 bills on the floor in total that are your own.
Okay. I feel like I heard that. I thought it was like 7. Did it go up? Or
No,
is it-
it's been 8.
I know it's been 8. Okay. Nice.
Just want to jump in real quick. We have some comments in there. They're asking about paying like kids on TikTok if you post them on there. That's only if you like make money on TikTok. Is that right? Is that what you're gathering? Okay.
Yes, so it would have to be, so your kid would have to be in like 30% of the content in the past 30 days. You would have to be getting at least 10 cents per view on the video or content. And then you would have to make a certain amount within the year for it to apply. So if you're just posting your kids just because it doesn't apply to you, and then if you're posting your kids but you're making $2 a year, it obviously doesn't apply to you. But if you're making $15,000 a year off your kid, we want to have some of that set aside for them in a trust so that they're getting to keep some of the money that they are earning.
I think that's reasonable for sure. Perfect.
There's been a couple comments. Are you familiar with the Trayman Wood case?
Yes, I called the governor and sent my own email earlier today.
Thank you. I did a video on that, and it's been kind of circulating now. So I'm very thankful that you went ahead and did that without, I don't know if you even got called about it, but that's awesome that you went ahead and took those steps. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I thought my mic wasn't even on. I'm like, yeah. I think there's a thing. Is there something out there tomorrow? I feel like there's something out, a vigil or something.
Is there something tomorrow?
I feel like there is. I feel like I just saw that. I say just, I have no concept of time. I was at work and I left, and it was in that 5 to 5:30 range.
I have not seen one. I could have just missed it. I mean, one hasn't been sent to me directly, and I may not have come across it yet on social media. So
I think it was the ACLU. I think I got a text. I think it was the ACLU.
okay. I'll go look on their stuff and see if I'll be able to make it.
All right, cool.
Now, touching on that, is there something that we obviously calling a representative keeps going back to that? Is there something specifically that we should be asking for to get I guess, is it clemency that we should be asking for?
Yes. So whenever I reached out, I just said, whenever you call, if you say that you're calling about that, they just kind of add your name to the list and move on. I'm imagining it's because they're getting so many calls. In my email, I just said that I was encouraging the governor to follow the recommendation of the Pardon and Parole Board, as well as the victim's mother. And so I just said, to grant clemency.
Yeah.
And I do know they sent an automated message back, or I'm assuming it's automated at this point, maybe it's not, but just explaining that there's a specific process that he goes through, and then he'll make his decision from there.
Yeah, do we contact our representatives, or do we need to contact
You need to
Kevin
contact the
Smith?
governor.
Okay.
The governor is the only one that can grant clemency. We don't have any say in that. I will say you can contact us to ask us to also echo that call. And I did make sure to include in my email that I was reaching out not only as a private citizen, but also as a state representative.
Nice.
Sweet.
I have a question. Can I throw mine out there real quick?
Come on,
I know we touched on a lot of stuff, but broad-wise, it's a very tough position you're in a lot of the times. I want to know what's the most rewarding part of your position and also the hardest.
I'll start with the hardest so we can end with the positive. So I would say the hardest thing is that like everything's a group project. So, it's like, well, what legislation are you trying to get through? Well, whatever they'll let me get through. It's whatever the majority of people in, the shop will allow me to get through. And so everything's a group project. And so no matter how passionate you are or how necessary something is, you can't just go and do things on your own. And that can be kind of frustrating. Obviously, we all think that our own ideas are great. And if we implement them, everything would be perfect. And so whenever you have to, wait on everybody else and try to convince people, that's kind of frustrating. And it's also challenging with, whenever people say, well, what do we do about like the SNAP benefits? Well, we would have to go into special session for that. Well, special session again requires the group to agree, not just me. So you've got to contact not just me, but all of us. So I'd say that was the most challenging. I think the best thing for me is, even though a lot of the big things are group projects, there are things that I'm able to do and help people with on kind of like an individual or small scale basis. I like doing conversations like this. I like talking to regular everyday folks, and I like talking to people that aren't just entrenched in politics, but are just regular people that are being engaged, but they're not lobbyists, and they're not, this isn't their job or anything like that. And so for me, that's what it is. I've had those kind of wins where a constituent reaches out and they're having an issue with an agency, and I'm able to call and say, hey, what's going on? Can you call this person back? And while I can't make decisions for agencies, I can inquire about like what's taking so long, or who's the actual right person to call, or what is the document that's missing, like what's going on. And so that's always really nice to be able to help things along, or help somebody with something that they, especially when they're like, I've been trying to deal with this forever, and then we're able to make a couple of calls and they're like, oh, they finally explained what I needed, I got it in, everything's good. And it's like, okay, well, great, awesome. I didn't solve all of the world's problems, but I did do this one thing for somebody.
Love that. Elizabeth, you're muted, I think.
That's been my whole day. So when you talk about special session, like, thank you for explaining it like that. Because like in my head, I'm like, she asked for a special session, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But if the rest of the people are like, I'm good, then we just don't get that. That's what I'm hearing. And I'm like, so if that's the case, does it help for us to also call at that time and be like, we are asking for a special session, step it up?
Yes, it is helpful. If you see any of us that are putting out something and saying that we want a special session and you agree, contact your rep and your senator for sure. And then if you have relationships with any of us outside of reach out to us as well. You can reach out to all of us. you can use the website, but also if you ever want to just create like an email list, all of our emails are first dot last name at okhouse.gov or at oksenate.gov.
I saw that. It took me. I was like, it was too easy, right? You're looking at it, you're like, why is this? And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yay.
I do want to bring up something that I saw that you who endorsed you, which I thought was very exciting and interesting. LPAC. Can you kind of tell everybody what that's about and what they do and the importance of what they do?
Yeah, so LPAC is a political action committee, and they support queer women candidates. And I identify as queer, and I am a woman, so I was able to go through their endorsement process. You have to apply, you have to interview before they make that decision. So I was very excited about that. I see a question about Stonewall in Tulsa. I am technically the chair, but we have been trying to find someone else to take over. Not long after I became chair, I lost the vice president and secretary. And so because of that, Tulsa Stonewall kind of went under the umbrella of the state because the state had more volunteers and was better able to leverage things. Michelle Simmons is now the chair at the state level. And is in charge of Stonewall.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I hope I didn't miss any other questions.
I think we got them. Did we miss anything, Elisa?
I think we peppered them in pretty good.
The only other thing I saw, which was not real clear on how to interpret it, but something about how do we protect OU students being threatened on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. We're not on Twitter at all. I don't know what's going on there. Twitter's wild west. So,
well, I'm gonna be honest. I don't play with threats. I would just make police reports. That's where I would start. Because to me it's not a joke, and my policy is I don't have time to figure out if you're a joke. I can refer you to the people that are paid to investigate, but I'm not going to run that risk. And so I would say to report it to campus police first, but also to report it to the city police as well, not just the campus police.
And they should be able to also report it on Twitter. Now, whether or not that owner is going to do anything about it or not is another story, but that is another venue.
I know that the Norman PD has. I was impressed with just how they responded to things. So even when I showed up at the crisis unit, it was the Norman PD that was like, back it up. And that was at the beginning of the year, wasn't it, Elisa? I feel like.
Yeah.
But I was like impressed because it was like we knew this was coming, and then when it actually happened, they actually stepped up. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I feel like that would be that turnaround. Sorry, my thoughts are going faster than I can get it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think somebody asked about your educational background. I don't know if they missed the part where you're actually an educator.
I was an educator for over 10 years. I taught 8th grade English, and then I got my master's degree and was a school librarian. After that, I went to Tulsa Public Schools, but I got my GED because I had a kid really early. I have an associate's degree, a bachelor's, and a master's, all in education.
Oh, good. Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Does anybody else have anything?
If you could pass one bill tomorrow with no opposition, what would that be?
Oh man, with no opposition? Universal health care. There's a lot of things, but I'm like that one I just okay, cool. But I would love to do tons of things, but at minimum, that one. I know that would change a lot of people's living circumstances. I've lived without insurance. It sucks. And when you can have insurance, but it's really expensive, that also sucks.
Big time.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got people like deciding what medication they're going to have to do without. Like what?
Going into debt to
I
get
mean, that's
Yeah. Yep.
very sad. What really hits it for me is I work with a very vulnerable population, and I will say 75 to 80% of them had no idea that any of this was about to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely no idea.
It's hard because the people that are engaged are like really engaged and paying attention, and I think that they sometimes forget that a lot of people don't really know a lot of the things that are going on. And one of the reasons is, I mean, it used to be TV, radio, and newspaper, and that was covered. Well, now it's TV, radio, newspaper, and a million social media things and a million websites, and so everybody kind of has their own little bubbles of information, and so like tell people things because they really don't know. You might assume that they do, but they may not, or they may not know, how bad it is, or maybe they don't know the right terms for things. Maybe they don't know that ACA is Obamacare.
Right.
So
I was like, that's a big compliment.
I try to share as much kind of insight through these things as I can. When we're in, if anybody's watching this, when we're in session, you can call us off the floor, just FYI. So like if we're voting on something and you want to talk to us about, you can take a note you go to the desk, you leave your name, and they'll bring a note to us. Now it is up to us whether or not we come out and talk to you, but you can ask for us to come out and talk to you about a bill. Lobbyists do it all the time, but private citizens can do it as well. Like anybody can do it. You just walk up to the desk and say, I'm here, I want to talk to Rep so-and-so, and they'll bring us a note and we can come out and talk to you about the bill if you have something to say.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that was something that I actually just learned in the last like maybe 18 months. So I was like, oh, what? I didn't do that. So, sorry, my cat's just having.
What I'm gathering is that, like, from this conversation alone, which we kind of think about it in the back of our heads, is that you guys are approachable. You guys are, we can call you, we can email you, we can, like you said, send, I love that. And that it seems like you are super open to that, which is awesome, obviously. And I get that it's probably not quite like that across the board, but it kind of reminds us that, I don't know, that we can work together with you and say, hey, this is our issue. And I don't know. I just love that. You're more approachable.
Yeah. I say assume that all of us are approachable until we show you otherwise. And we're just people, and we still live in our districts. That's another misconception. I don't have any other job. This is my only salary. I still live in the same house since before I ran, and we'll continue here, and you'll still see me at the same stores, the same Quick Trip, the same Brahms or Sonic, whatever I need for that day. Like, you'll still see me at those same places. And yeah, it's not the same across the board, but I say assume that we are approachable and that we are just everyday people first. And hopefully you'll be surprised by more of us than anything, and they'll be like, oh yeah, absolutely. And if they're not, then make note of that and make sure that you share that with people. Like, hey, I tried to talk to this rep, I called this many times and I emailed this many times and I could never get them, but I called this one and they showed up. I mean, I've gone to Bethany, Oklahoma for people. I've gone to Sallisaw for people. I do represent my district, but everything that we do has an impact for Oklahomans across the state. So yeah, I just assume good intentions, unless we show you otherwise, and then, respond accordingly when we mess up.
Gonna have to get her over to some of those greenhouses y'all got cooking around
I'm right here. I'm in a Sperry/Owasso. So
Okay.
I'm here, and we've got two greenhouses in Tulsa County. We'd just love to, I don't know, have you come look at it. Maybe, I don't know, throw a couple seeds down with us.
If you want me to come to something, quite literally, just email me and ask. My assistant will tell you I have a really bad time saying no to things. I'm always overextending myself. In fact, just the other day I said, hey, can you put this on my calendar real quick and see what time it's over so I get to the next thing? And she goes, I thought you were trying to chill out a little bit. This is your third event of the day. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, don't put that on my calendar. You're right. You're right.
Like boundaries, man, boundaries.
Yeah. What's your website? What's your socials? How can people get a hold of you, support you, all that?
Oh, so my socials and my website, campaign wise, are all the same thing. It's McCane, the number 4, OK, and that is MCCANE, the number 4, OK. It is not spelled like the senator. It is ANE.
Sorry.
I just say that because that's what that's how everybody spells it. But people ask me about that, and I am not related to John McCain, to my knowledge, unless his family owned mine at one point. So.
Truth bomb there. Thank you for that.
Mic drop.
Would not be surprised, though, at all.
And I don't say that to be mean to the senator at all. He's probably one of the last Republicans that I can be like, oh, I actually respect him. But that is genuinely the origin of my last name. One of my ancestors was gifted as a dowry to a McCain family, and it was spelled AIN. And then a couple generations later, it was ANE.
Oh, wow. Isn't that wild how that works?
Gifted? Did I hear that right? As a dowry?
Yes.
Wow. Unbelievable.
How far we've come, but how far we still have to go.
Right.
Work is still to be done.
Yep.
Yes. Like, oh my goodness.
Was there any last thoughts you wanted to throw out there for us? We are so thankful to have you on here. It's been a great live tonight. I loved it.
I am more than happy to do this again. Also, I greatly appreciate you guys giving me a chance to do a live that I was not in control of, because now I feel less like a boomer and I can go do my own live. I do also want to tell everybody that thinks I'm so young that I am old on the inside. I stressed for 30 minutes before this about whether or not I was going to end up being the person going, hang on, I'm getting on there. I just knew that something was going to happen and I wasn't going to be able to get on, and people were going to be like, oh my God, she can't even work the internet.
No, that was me.
I am so glad that it went well. I really actually liked this format, just talking to folks and asking questions. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to do this more myself so that I can give more people an opportunity to talk to a representative. But I'm happy to come back at any time, and just keep on doing what you guys are doing. Invite us on, hold us accountable.
I wonder if we could get a few of y'all on and do a forum with Ask a Rep or something.
Possibly, yeah.
Towards the first of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, because everybody is just tripping over themselves. Now, I'm old enough to have had to have civics growing up, where we had to learn all that, and then I went on to college. I'm 3 credit hours shy of a bachelor's in poli-sci, but that was another lifetime ago, and I cannot believe how much of the basic stuff has been taken out of even elementary school, junior high school, where there's no functioning level of understanding civics and democracy. So getting a few different viewpoints of how that works, people willing to actually help, like I said. Yeah.
Test, you don't have time for all of the things
100%.
And the field trips that we used to go on. A lot of the things that I say about education don't ever get printed for some reason. I don't know why, but I've been saying over and over again, we keep doing this reading, writing, and arithmetic thing right now. School has never been reading, writing, and arithmetic. My great-grandmother, my grandmother, my dad, they had auto shop, they had wood shop, they had family and consumer sciences. I went on a ton of field trips for different things. I don't know why we think that we are going to give kids a less of an educational experience and somehow they're going to flourish more. It just doesn't make any sense. You can't just do reading, writing, and arithmetic. You've got to do the sciences, and you've got to do the art, all of the things that reinforce those things. But yeah, the civics education is hard. I always use the excuse that I had a kid really early, and so I got my GED and I didn't take U.S. government, but and so my last bit of civics was I'm just a bill. But
Yeah, it's also
But
overwhelming.
that was
So much
something.
to learn.
I mean, the Bill thing, the Schoolhouse Rock stuff, that was at least some basic stuff that we don't have anymore either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is terrible. And I'm so grateful that we have representatives like you who are in remembrance of our actual roots instead of the ones they want to make up. So thank you for that too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. We're going to have Oklahoma Woman take us out with Ivy's Speakeasy made us this little jingle, and we just love it. So she's here in Oklahoma City and just good heart.
Thank you again for having
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
It's okay. I wish I could sing that.
We need a dance.
I told Michael that.
I have no rhythm, so I can't.
Same. But I still do it. It's okay.
I can twerk, but my hands are no. Not really legislature appropriate. So.
Authenticity is the new way to be. I mean,
Right?
yeah.
Please.
That's what we shoot for. So thank you for that too.
I'd rather
To call Governor Stitt before 8 a.m. tomorrow to advocate for Raymond Wood. Tomorrow is the day.
What is that number? Do we have that?
We have it at 405-521-2342. That's Governor Stitt himself. He's the only one that can grant clemency fully, I guess, on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Yes.
Thank you for that. And then next week we will have Erica Watkins. She is CD1 candidate, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
So, yay! Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you,
Thank
Representative
everybody for the
McCane.
questions.
Love having you on here.
Thank you so much. It was so good to see you. Thanks for being on.